Welcome to another episode of Conduct Detrimental. Dan Lust, Mike Krevchenko, Terrence Sharma, and maybe one or more surprise guests. That's what happened when you have 5 people on the call sheet, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out as we go. Okay, so we'll just say this as a programming note. We have heavy winds reported in the New York area. My internet and my power has been going in and out. My K, same deal, but the show must go on. Okay, and of course, everyone's waiting for Taryn to call me out that Travis Hunter's out for the year, and he was right about the bet. We've got it out of the way, okay? I'm losing a lot of money on the bet. I still could be right about Justin Herbert, but we'll deal with that in due time. / we're not dealing with it again. We've dealt with it at the top. It's all good. Okay, a couple big stories. Last episode, we covered the basketball betting saga very heavily. What do you know? We have 2 very big updates. We have the Major League Baseball betting scandal. That is Emmanuel Clase, who's the headliner of that, we'll call it ordeal for now. We have Isaac Delgarian in the UFC. And then we have some interesting stuff heading over in the college space. The termination that never was, the Brian Kelly contract, that it's very bizarre what's happening. We'll figure this out. And then the kind of next saga in the Big Ten private equity scandal. I thought it was worthy of a topic. Maybe we'll save time for the end, but the Nico Harrison firing, I think, leaves a lot of questions as to how a general manager had so much authority, whether he had authority to make a Luka Doncic trade, but we'll see if we have time for it. Okay, reminder, podcast sponsored by Themis Bar Review, top bar prep company in the galaxy. Themis is the greatest. We have some stuff in the works, what I keep saying for a while, but we got back on track with Themis. Looks like we'll have a program at some point in the city. We'll figure it out. Okay. Now, time for brass tacks. Mike, Taryn, have you or anyone you know been harmed by an Emmanuel Clase pitching prop?
Yes, I have. One.
Yes.
Yeah, my 2-year-old nephew is a huge Cleveland fan and knows all the players, and one of his favorite is Clase. And so he was telling his mom, my sister-in-law, the other day that, baseball's over. He's sad about that, but it's okay because Clase will be healthy next time baseball comes back. So betting broke the heart of a young child.
Well, Class A will be lucky to pitch in Class A or any form of professional baseball. Again, Taryn liked that joke. I see him smiling there. Okay, so unless you're living under a rock, let's cover the Major League Baseball betting saga. We'll cover UFC, which happened in the middle between basketball. So what's Ortiz's first name, Taryn? Is it Luis?
Luis. Yep.
Yes, we have Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz. So these are the pitchers we've known about this. These they were flagged for regular betting patterns. I believe it was June, but they've been not playing for the past couple months, trying to figure out what happened. Now, if you recall, maybe you don't know the pitchers' names, but you might have seen these clips going viral of these Cleveland Guardians pitchers kind of like spiking balls into the ground on a first pitch. And the rumor on the street was that there was some suspicious betting pattern around the activity of their first pitch. Would it be a ball or a strike? Now, some of you, which I didn't realize this. I didn't realize that nobody knew about this. As someone that on this podcast, I've been on the record as being a very heavy sport bettor, prop bettor, exotics, parlays, teasers, you name it. I've probably betted at some point in time. I got into a round robin phase somewhat recently, but neither here nor there. So I went to a Citi Field Mets game, early in the summer, and as someone, I understand the pitching props and home run props, strikeout props, whatever, right? I did not know until this year that you could actually bet on every pitch, whether a pitch would be over or under a certain miles an hour, whether it would be a slider, whether the ball would be hit in play, a single, the amount of overall pitches that would be in at bat. I certainly understood that technology was around, but if you just think about it, it's the only sport that could offer those type of props. Basketball, a fluid sport. Soccer, football, they don't offer what would happen on the next play, at least as far as I know. But in baseball, you could bet on every pitch. Now, synonymous with learning of this is when the Emmanuel Clase stuff comes out. According to the federal indictments by the same prosecutor's office in the Eastern District of New York that had the basketball charges, we have wire fraud charges, money laundering charges, bribery charges. We have some additional charges that get these offenses up to 65 years in jail if proven guilty on all counts. Now, this will sound very familiar, similar to the Terry Rozier saga. We have suspicious betting patterns. Once again, people betting outside their normal bands, people betting when it didn't make sense. these pitching props were alleged to have been parlayed with one another, such that almost like the bettors knew what was going to be happening. And I'm just kind of putting all the information on the table, then we'll unpack it. I'm sure most of you know this at this point. This was, or Luis Ortiz was more of a like a minimum salary type guy. Emmanuel Clase, maybe you have not heard of him, was two-time, three-time All-Star, two-time reliever of the year, a guy that has made his money. I think he had recently signed like a $20 million contract. So this was a guy, if you're a basketball fan, probably slightly above Terry Rozier status, maybe like right around there. Not quite like perennial all-star, but like of relevance that people that follow baseball knew. He's not necessarily like a casual guy, like top reliever in the American League. No, I think it was 2 of the last 3 years, not including this year. And what is being alleged, which people in my world are having a hard time figuring out, is, hey, this guy was only making a couple grand, and he's not going to pitch again, and he was making tens of millions of dollars. Make it make sense. That is the general gist of the allegations as we sit here, and as lawyers, and Mike, soon to be lawyer, will unpack what we have. And we're not just here to just recap the news. We want to help problem solve. So with that said, Taryn, I see you chomping at the bit. Let me pass the baton to you, my friend.
Yeah, it's a very interesting case. Obviously one that has been going on for some time. You mentioned June. So one of these incidents happened on June 15th, and it was after that IC 360, which is one of these betting integrity firms, kind of like I believe it's like U.S. Integrity.
U.S. Integrity is one of the big ones, yeah.
Yeah, that's like the well-known one. They're the ones that flagged the Brad Bohannon Alabama baseball one that happened in Cincinnati. So, yeah, I mean, it's yet another example. I think it coincides with the legalization of sports betting. But I think on the other hand, IC360 and US Integrity, these firms exist in a way to protect legal bettors. And so they've done their job here. They noticed something odd. It's a weird prop to bet on Luis Ortiz first pitches or Emmanuel Clase first pitches. And basically, as soon as it happened, it must have been already on their radar, because they flagged it, and it was taken care of.
Okay, now, as only we could do it, I want to merge 2 of these stories, and we'll talk about the issues all together. So the question that a lot of baseball fans have is, hey, there are 8 reported incidents of Emmanuel Clase pitches being flagged for suspicious betting pattern. 8. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7. Taryn, who am I?
6, 7?
No, come on. I thought you could. Oh, come on. Oh, I walked into a 6-7 joke. No, that was a LeBron James Miami Heat joke, but come on. Man, my kids are running around my house screaming 6-7, 6-7, 6-7. I just walked. Maybe it's in my head.
I just learned about it when some trick-or-treaters yelled it at me when I opened the door.
Well, Taryn, I thought I was old. You're old. This has been around for a couple months, my man. Okay, so Isaac Delgarian is a name that probably people don't know. The overlap of circles between basketball and baseball, I'm sure, is large. Between baseball and UFC is probably a little bit less. The question is, right, and I'll merge these 2. We'll do the Trump weave. We'll make it all make sense. The question is, how did 8 8 pitches for Emmanuel Clase? How did these all, if we could flag the suspicious betting pattern ahead of time, why didn't anybody say something? Whose fault is that? Is that Rob Manfred's fault? Is it the outside third party vendor's fault? If we're saying that these things were suspicious and we're all clear that, hey, we could have spotted these things ahead of time, like nobody spotted it. And maybe someone's sitting here like, well, Dan, the technology's not there. They could not have spotted it. Interestingly, we move over to the UFC. 2 weeks ago, there was a very uneventful UFC fight night at the Apex. It wasn't at the Madison Square Garden event that we have this weekend or any type of big event that anybody cares about. It was random fighters on a no-name card, and really no one of significance was fighting on the card. So UFC gets a heads up from their, integrity vendor. And they say, hey, there's this guy, Isaac Delgarian. He's a minus 300 favorite. We're seeing some very suspicious betting patterns. And he's been bet all the way down from a minus 300 favorite to, I think, about a minus 150 favorite. And we're seeing the same accounts, no matter where this line goes. It goes from minus 300 to minus 200 to minus 150. These same accounts are betting more and more and more. It's almost as if they know what's going to happen. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the betting activity. And an abnormal amount of props for this fighter to lose in the first round. A favorite fighter that I think was undefeated to that point and had never been finished in the first round, for that prop to be bet at an alarming rate was suspicious. So guess what? This vendor calls the UFC. And how do we know this? Dana White went on TMZ and said this. And they said, hey, we have this suspicious betting pattern. We're just telling you about it. I'm not sure what you want to do about it. So Dana White, I don't know if it was him or one of his kind of people beneath him, went to this fighter and they allegedly said, hey, what's going on? Are you hurt? Did you tell anybody inside information? What's going on? Do you have something going on? And the guy goes, no, I'm going to kick the crap out of this guy. And wouldn't you know, the fight goes on. And if you watch, it's about a 2-minute fight. You can draw whatever conclusions you want. The guy does things that seem to be a little uncharacteristic, and he gets choked out about 2.5 minutes in. He doesn't look dejected after he loses. He just gets up very calmly and walks to the other side of the cage, which is not the typical reaction of someone that just lost the first fight of their career. So why do I bring this up? The UFC had an opportunity to stop this fight. They did not. I'm not sure what happened in MLB circles. But Taryn, Mike, I'll leave this to you. This is the other interesting question that we as lawyers have to think through. And on Sunday, I was called into duty to speak for the New York Post, and I gave a suggestion, and I think Major League Baseball was listening because they did it. Taryn, Mike, UFC fighters, Isaac Delgarian, that guy makes like no money, right? Like maybe he makes 25 grand a fight, I don't know the exact numbers, but minor league or minimum salary UFC guys make like $10 to show and $10,000 to win. So 10 and 10 contracts. Now, Major League Baseball players make a lot more than that for minimum salary over the course of the year. Maybe they're making mid 6 figures. Okay. I can understand how someone like Isaac Delgarian, who is a mid to lower level UFC guy fighting on a no-name card, can be bribed with a large bet, allegedly as would happen, and, kind of throwing a fight. I can understand how Luis Ortiz does that. Okay. And I can understand all those mechanisms. I have a really hard time understanding the motivations for the Terry Roziers of the world, the Emmanuel Clases that make tens of millions of dollars. And I have an even harder time understanding how the commissioners, be it, Dana White or Rob Manfred, find a way to police people that don't need the money yet are doing it anyway. So I'll say this, and then I'll kind of pass the baton, whoever wants to take it. Baseball announced today that they were limiting the amount of action that could be taken on pitching props. They're not allowed to parlay these props. I think they're capping pitching props at like $200. My suggestion was just to remove them, because what sickos need to be betting on every pitch? Not me, not this sicko. I've never done that. Once or twice. But, I'm not betting $200. I bet like $1, $2. It's just fun for the action. So I'm not sure what sickos were betting $1,000 a pitch. That seems on the line of degeneracy. But Mike, Taryn, I certainly gave you a lot. The question is, what do we do as the commissioner's office? Do we let Emmanuel Clase dig his grave? Do we let them just fight it out like Dana White and then fire them after? What is the proper way to deal with this if you're the commissioner's office?
Mike, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say, but to me, I think the only approach that's reasonable here is to make an example out of it. This is somebody that signed a 5-year, $20 million contract. And I understand Luis Ortiz is making $780,000 or whatever the major league minimum is. He's not necessarily established. He's 26 years old. That payday may never come for Luis Ortiz, but the point is, I think that you have to discourage this the only way that we know how, which is to totally prevent them from being able to earn money playing baseball going forward. And I would take this a step further, not just preventing them from earning in the major leagues, but also leveraging the connections that the leagues have with the Mexican baseball leagues and with the Dominican baseball leagues to ensure that they cannot play in those leagues for money either. And that seems harsh, but the only way that you're going to prevent people who have otherwise seemingly on face have nothing to lose or have everything to lose, is by punishing them to the point where it no longer seems like a reasonable action to take. The other thing that I've been grappling with here is that it makes me wonder whether there was something else going on, that that these bettors had threatened these individuals, that their families were threatened. Because if you notice in the indictment, it says that money was actually being sent directly to the Dominican Republic. Now, ostensibly, this was for repairs on a country house, or they were lying and saying that it was for a horse. But still, I think the possibility remains that these were people who were in a tough situation, that they got mixed up with the wrong people, and as a result, their families were at risk or something like that. And so I think we're going to end up with a trial, and that may be an argument that is effectively made in defense. Mike?
I think that's definitely fair, and I feel like we're gonna start seeing that trend across all of sports, not just in maybe threatening or sending money home, but also just on a general like mental health and overexposure maybe moving forward. Just these are players and individuals that are probably exposed to sports gambling the actual most out of any other individual, I'd imagine, when it comes to they're sponsored on their jerseys. They are every arena, every practice facility. Some of the players have private partnerships now with, DraftKings. And so I don't know what I think there needs to be a larger impact, or at least maybe all professional leagues maybe taking some time and hiring an external agency or whoever it could be to figure out the core issue. Because there are of course those issues where players are being threatened, or they're just sending different money home, or however they're sending it. But I think it does come down to the like mental choice and option to do something like that. Because with a 5-year, I mean, $20 million guaranteed in a salary, there's really no reason you shouldn't be able to utilize that, and support people off of that, just that itself, just the guaranteed money. So, like you said, Taryn, there might be some other play involved as well, but I also think the MLB just needs to publicly align with the Department of Justice here and like genuinely just signal transparency, because that just has not been the case with the NBA and previously even, the MLB, NFL, everyone does internal investigations. I think this is time that they can really take a step forward as a league and make a positive impact on us as fans worried about the integrity, the players as well. I think that they really do need to run parallel rather than have that inconsistency.
And sportsbook partners as well.
I want to point this out, which none of you took the bait, but let's see if I can convince either of you. We know for a fact, because it's from Dana White, that he was told ahead of time and allowed this fighter to continue going. There have been some sports books, I think William Hill, there's probably one other, that basically refunded all losing bets on this fight from Isaac Delgarian. Okay. Now, that's a decision that was made by those sports books. Now, we're looking at the indictment concerning Emmanuel Clase, and there's been a lot of jokes about like, hey, they allege that 8 pitches were rigged pitches, or so to speak. They were bet with inside information. They had regular betting patterns. And according to the indictment, 7 of the 8 pitches resulted in the desired effect that the gamblers behind the scenes wanted. And the 8th was, Taryn, you're laughing. Go ahead.
Andy Paez swinging at a ball that was in the other batter's box.
Right. And then you saw Clase like look kind of annoyed that the guy swung. It was a very weird reaction. But we at least from the indictment, it looks like a really strong case, right? And somebody asked me, I did Locked On Yankees today, so I've never done that one before. That was fun. And they said like, how many years do you think they're going to get in prison? And I'm like, and I said it on the podcast. Let's see if they cut it. I'm like, are you asking me to set an over-under on jail time? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that, but yeah, whatever. No, but the point being, like, it's a really strong case. And again, you'll see if you, and Mike, you kind of, I think you were going there with the Justice Department. I think there's a world that Major League Baseball knew what was happening, because we know what happened in the UFC context, and they allowed this activity to continue in order to build up an incredible case against Clase. Because think about what is being bet. It's not like the 1919 Black Sox, where there was a giant conspiracy allegedly between all the players on the team to throw the World Series. Like, you can't really stand back and let that happen. That's pretty bad if they're throwing the World Series. And like you could talk about point shaving scandals or whatnot, but it's a kind of a giant conspiracy amongst the entire team, to influence the result of the game. Or even Pete Rose, who was alleged to have bet on games when he was a manager, but betting on the wins and losses. Now, what is the actual action here? Like, we can all talk about legality and whatnot, and like no one is disputing that if what was done is true, like that certainly amounts to wire fraud and bribery and whatever. We're not here to police the criminal side. I'm on the morality side. What are we really talking about? We're talking about a pitcher, instead of throwing an 0-0 fastball, they're throwing an 0-0 changeup or a curveball, or they're throwing a first pitch ball. Like, it's not really impacting the result of the game that much. So I think it's possible Major League Baseball was alerted to this at some point, and said, you know what, let this guy dig his own grave. Let's get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 of these, right? Let's get a handful of these. And because it's not really impacting the game, right? The fact that you're throwing a ball or strike on a first pitch, yes, the integrity of the game is in question. But if you only have one of these instances and you stop him, he could claim, like his lawyer's claiming, that this was completely lawful activity and there was no choice. But if there's 8 of these and you have all the text, this is the opportunity to set that example. So, Mike, to your point, you want to see him work with the Justice Department. I think it's possible they're doing it right now. Like that. This is what this case screams to me. I don't think they just let this happen. If the tech existed to catch it and they didn't say anything for 8 times, like I think they probably did it on purpose, is my instinct.
Well, I think that's a reasonable point, because we're talking about here, Luis Ortiz is caught after 2. And so like 8, you would think is plenty if they can catch someone after 2 with irregular bets, unless there's like a huge volume of Emmanuel Clase first pitch prop bets, which I mean, I don't think that there would be. It's an
it's just live. It's whenever he goes into the game they're offered.
I know, but like whether there's a lot of them, like if there are a lot of them all the time, then maybe there's not. Maybe it is more difficult to catch the pattern of increased betting activity, which is how they're doing this. And so we would have to ask IC360 or U.S. Integrity.
You can ask me. Ask me, Taryn.
Yeah, all right. I'll ask you.
Ask me. Pretend I'm U.S. Integrity.
Okay. Did you know early on and you were waiting for more confirmatory evidence? Or did you find out only after the 8th incident and the 2 Luis Ortiz incidents? Is that how you pieced it together? Did you need this 10-pitch sample?
I am a machine. I know everything. Okay. And my obligation here, I know everything. I know every pitch data of every activity, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday games, day games, night games, road games, away games. I know the bands of normal betting activity. And I know on the spot, once those things are flagged, think of me like a giant board of zeros and ones. 0, not suspicious betting activity. 1, suspicious. And it's our job to watch the screens and alert that. We get pinged when suspicious betting activity occurs. Now, we don't have to look further. The comments from these betting vendors, and they tried to stay very silent in the wake of this because I think they're under federal probes and whatnot, and they have to be very careful. But like, their job is to flag it. And like, it's a kind of just a software system just pinging. So I don't think it would take someone 8. Meanwhile, if this was like the first year of betting, if this is year 1, and I do want to make this point, if this was like the first week that betting was offered, they would have no historical context. So they don't know what's irregular or not irregular. And the people that were betting, quote unquote, irregular, at least according to this indictment, and this is similar to the basketball indictment, they view irregular as when somebody opens up a new account, and that new account, their first wager is on something that has a suspicious volume. So if it's like, they open up an account for the Super Bowl. Like, that's not suspicious. A lot of people do that. Or, the Stanley Cup Finals or the World Series. That's why there's all these weird promos, right? Or opening night of NFL or Major League Baseball. But if you open up an account and your first bet is to deposit $10,000 and bet it on Emmanuel Clase first pitch, like, that is suspicious.
It is.
Like, there's different levels of suspicious. It's like they have a profile, Mike, of you, and we did this on the last podcast, but that's suspicious. Opening up a new account and betting on some I almost said a bad word. Some really weird prop, like, that's weird. And if all of those weird things are pigging and they're the overlapping in the same Venn diagram of suspicious, it's like suspicious. And it's not like to have some human triangulating the signal. It's just the Venn diagram of suspicions are all centering on the same activity.
Okay, so let me ask you one thing then. What do you think of the approach that I proposed, that they just like bring the hammer down on this guy and on these guys and just not allow them to play baseball for money anymore? Is that the way? Because they've done that before with Tucupita Marcano. He placed like 400 bets on baseball. They banned him for life. Clearly, that's not enough of an example. Is that the way to go? Does that even work? Or do they need jail time?
That name that you just said, Tucupita Marcano, I'm familiar with his game, but that sounds a lot like one of those like Italian TikTok guys, like Crocodilo Bambino. Listen, I kind of know things. Mike knows what I'm talking about. I kind of know things every once in a while. I probably said the name wrong. And if my daughters are listening to this, they would think I'm really cringe. But anyway, moving on. Yeah, of course, they're going to lay down the hammer. The only thing that came to mind, Trevor Bauer can't get a job in Major League Baseball, but he has a job in like the Korean Baseball League. So, talent will prevail. And I like, it's not like there's some like international, like the United Nations of baseball where they make some rule and no one can play baseball. Like, if Emmanuel Clase wants to play in the, Dominican Baseball League or wherever it is, like he'll be able to find a home. It's just a matter of who takes a chance on him. But I don't, in the grand scheme of like morality, I think he will find a home. I don't know if it's a hot take, but like influencing the first pitch of an at bat is very different than rigging a game to lose on purpose. Like it's very different. Like, yeah, they're both question the integrity of the game, but one does so in a way that's like trivial and it doesn't really impact anything. And the other one is like throwing the 1919 World Series. Like that's pretty big.
Yeah, I don't think it means nothing, right? The difference between 1-0 and 0-1 is at least statistically significant. But no, I'm saying, is that the right approach? Should Major League Baseball lean on the leverage that it has over the international leagues in order to make sure that nobody ever employs these guys to play baseball again? Like, is that what's going to stop future bettors from doing something that is worse?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of two things. And Mike, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And this is the point that like we sit here and we try to figure out a deterrent. And when the listeners of the show and people took criminal law at some point, like it's a lot of deterrence and like recidivism. You want to make sure that you find a way to make sure this doesn't happen again. Like Emmanuel Clase might have to like, die on the sword, so to speak, for this not to happen again. The problem, and this is like somewhat like, okay, yes, throw the book at them. Ban them from baseball, ban them from the international leagues, have baseball create some crazy rules that if you like employ this guy and you sign him, like no one else in your league can like ever play in Major League Baseball, whatever they want to do. Like I have no issue doing that. That will be a deterrence, but I think equally as big, maybe less, to Taryn, to give you credit, maybe a little bit less, is the publicity, like we talked about last episode, the publicity around this technology that people will be caught. So like maybe like people are saying, how could he be so foolish and bet a couple $1,000s and risk his $1 million salary? Because he probably in his infinite wisdom thought, hey, if everyone's betting really small amounts, no one will catch this. Like that probably was a conscious thought they had, or else they have a surefire thing. Why don't you bet like $10 million on it? You control it. Like you throw a pitch into the ground, spike it 100, but if you bet $10 million on that, yeah, even Emmanuel Clase is smart enough to know like, that would be viewed as suspicious. $10 million on a first pitch prop. And the person betting its last name is Clase and their first name is Emmanuel. Just like the Calvin Ridley saga once upon a time when he opened up a betting account in his own name. Just geniuses, pure geniuses. But, the point being here, like, I don't think, and we didn't say this, Emmanuel Clase's saga and the investigation and the suspicious betting patterns date back to 2023 at a time where I don't think the sports world, and maybe a lot of people learning it now, understood that this irregular betting patterns were just pinged. They were just, the system and AI was so smart, it would just catch it in real time before the event happened. So I feel confident, and maybe I'm wrong, and that's okay if I'm wrong, but like, I don't think we're going to have betting sagas like where somebody bet after November 12th of 2025. Like, I think people are smart enough not to do that. But we're going to have a window of things that have yet to be released, but stuff that the feds are looking into for activity that occurred in the last year, 2 years, 3 years. So we can have all these big conversations about what to set examples and how to make sure they don't do it again. But I have a feeling we're going to start getting more betting sagas that have already happened. We're just going to learn about them because the feds are trying to figure out when to release them. So I don't know if it's a hot take, but we're not going to see the end of it. And there's no deterrence that can retroactively purge the wrong that happened in the last 2-3 years. Michael, I'll give it to you on the last.
And yeah, Dan, I mean, it's only going to continue growing, sports betting. So, like you had mentioned, and like Taryn had mentioned, I think this is a good. I think I don't know whether it's a flag or like a pinpoint, like that you put on a map or something. Like this is a time in sports betting history that I think is going to really flip the script because. Like you said, Dan, I mean, this is a very significant, like in your face situation. So hopefully players are, smarter, but I'm not excited, but somewhat excited to see for the next, 2 weeks, month, 6 months of what other names come out and who else falls.
Okay, so let's do this. I think Bryce Goodwin, we'll say our resident editor-in-chief, will join us whenever he's ready to turn on his camera. Bryce, are you here?
I am here. Hey, what's going on, guys? How are we doing?
Okay.
Let's get a round of applause
join
real
us.
quick.
Hard to not wake
I
up
don't know.
from baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what you are doing. You look like you're in parts unknown right now.
I just got home from work, and I'm in probably the quietest acoustic environment
That's pretty good.
in my living surroundings. So I thought I'd do this segment here.
No one believes you. We know that you were coming from doing very illicit activities, and you've just taken a break from those activities to join us. So we appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right before this, he was doing first pitch bets.
That's exactly what he was doing on the Korean Baseball League.
Absolutely. Me and Trevor Bauer are best friends.
BFFs. Okay, so let's do this quick. Taryn, I'm going to have you and Bryce mainly take the lead in this. I'm going to be called out for parenting duty. So if I have to drop at some point, I will let you guys know. You know what, Taryn? I have the segue here. Are you ready for this, Taryn?
Yeah, hit me.
Okay. I'm going to sneak in a little Nico Harrison here, and then we're going to go to Brian Kelly, and then I'm going to pass the baton. How about that?
Yeah,
How about that, Mapples?
Yeah.
Okay. So Nico Harrison, the news today, I think really big news. And Mike K, I'm going to call you out here. You're like, why were you talking about Nico Harrison? There's nothing relevant about Nico Harrison. He just got fired. The fire of Nico Harrison is somewhat unprecedented. So Nico Harrison, we were on this podcast, 9 months ago, talking about how this trade went down, and if Nico Harrison had the authority of the owner, you're trading a star player, and it was one of the worst trades in history. We talked about getting fleeced. I think, Mike, I had you pretending to be Nico Harrison, and like we were doing this role playing of like how you let this trade happen. You're like, oh, whatever. So we're about 2 weeks into the NBA season, 3 weeks into the NBA season. No coaches get fired this early for a team that had no expectations. And we had released a letter from ownership today from the Dallas Mavericks. And they said in 2024, we made the finals. And since then, it's been really tough to be a Mavericks fan. And we're moving on to the next saga. So if you just read the writing on the wall, okay, they're certainly not being fired. Nico Harrison's not being fired because of the slow start the Mavericks had. They have a very young team. They're injured. It has nothing to do with the general manager. They're being fired because of the impact of this trade, of trading Luka Doncic. Now, I will turn this over to the panel. I just thought we could do 2 minutes on it. That was interesting. Okay. I view this decision to fire Nico Harrison as basically a general manager seemingly gone rogue. I'm not sure how you want to phrase it, but someone basically deviating from what is normal operating procedure as a general manager, whether they were consulting the ownership or not. The decision to fire him within 9 months of a groundbreaking trade, when he seemed to have everything right in his tenure before then and nothing wrong since. They drafted Cooper Flagg. He looks pretty good, right? It's a decision to say that this trade was not in line with normal. Maybe it was a deviation from the norm. So I do view this as maybe someone outstepped the bounds of their authority. So I'll open this up to the panel. I view this Nico Harrison firing as maybe a watershed moment for general managers in terms of like, trust me, bro, this is going to work out.
Yeah. I mean, the other possibility is that the NBA had asked him to make this deal so that there was a successor to LeBron in LA. And he got Cooper Flagg in return because otherwise, like, the return doesn't make sense, right? They got Anthony Davis only.
So he's the fall guy. No one's entertaining me in this. No one thinks that this is just Nico Harrison going rogue. Mike doesn't. I know Mike doesn't. Maybe Bryce does.
Listen, Dan, I think you might be onto something. I think that uh, you know, the past listeners of the show in times that I've been on, they may think that I'm just the soccer guy because I always bring it back to soccer analogies, and I know Taryn will appreciate this being a Liverpool fan. I think in Europe, especially in England, you have for soccer teams, you have the sporting director, which is the European equivalent of a GM. And I think we see a lot of Nico Harrison type decisions from sporting directors in Europe that get a lot of flack from fans and cause a lot of unrest, a lot of protest, a lot of calls for firings, but you don't really see it ever coming to fruition. And so this is really in my experience, the first example of a general manager type suffering an employment consequence for making a decision that, he likely felt in good faith was for the best of the team. We can't really speculate to his internal motives, but you would think and hope that Nico Harrison wasn't making that trade for the detriment of the team that he's running. But ultimately, it really was a bewildering one. Shocked us all, I think. And, it probably is a watershed moment because now you have precedent that, if a GM makes a decision that's not in alignment with the objectives of ownership, there could be consequences for it.
Yeah. I think that this ties into LSU. So we'll do the weave again, Dan. But I think it ties into
the weave. Do the weave.
We're doing it big. But the reason is I think that LSU finally read the contract that they gave to Brian Kelly, the one that includes a $53 million buyout. And they realize that they don't need to pay the buyout if he's fired for cause. But it's a little late for that because they already had a meeting where they essentially fired him. And now they're saying, actually, no, we never fired you. And the argument I think that they're making is that basically Scott Woodward, the AD at the time, had gone rogue. In the same way that I guess that they're saying that Nico didn't have the approval and went rogue. But look, if I went rogue one way or the other, I think I would be fired immediately. So maybe that's something that is in LSU's favor here, as opposed to Nico getting, another half a year, getting the chance to draft Cooper Flagg, whatever. I think that the LSU situation in particular, Bryce, is really interesting that they're alleging that he's been being fired for cause. But with all of that, there's a process that is prescribed within the agreement that they needed to follow, right? And they didn't do that here.
Yeah, absolutely, Taryn. And I think for me, the peculiarity of LSU's stance here is highlighted best when you read what the grounds for cause in the contract actually are. So I'm going to read them out real quick for everyone. So basically, under the contract, Kelly can be terminated for cause due to material and substantial NCAA rule violations, either being convicted of a felony or any crime involving gambling, drugs, or alcohol, or engaging in any misconduct which displays a serious disrespect for LSU's mission or conduct that constitutes moral turpitude. And so, you have these grounds, but unfortunately for LSU, you have their leadership going on record publicly and saying that Brian Kelly was dismissed because his performances were not up to par for what they were demanding. So you've got these specific grounds in the contract that tell us expressly how he can be termed for cause. But then you also have LSU leadership saying, well, actually, Brian Kelly didn't get the job done on the field, so he's got to go. So that's not really adding up too well if you're LSU trying to retroactively say, either he's not been terminated yet, or yes, he's been terminated, but let's terminate him for cause. But I don't think that's going to work when you go to court and you pull up the contract as an exhibit and say, here are the actual grounds for cause, and this is why you said he was fired. That doesn't really add up.
Yeah, so let's put ourselves in these shoes a little bit, okay? Mike, I want you to be LSU. And Dan, you are going to be Brian Kelly. So what exactly are you asking for the benefit of your family?
I wanted to say my family. Taryn, you blew it. Okay, it's okay. Okay, Taryn, go ahead. Set us up.
Yeah. Okay. So you've filed in the 19th Judicial District for the parish of East Baton Rouge. What are you alleging right now?
I believe, Taryn. I believe I'm seeking a declaratory judgment that I was fired for cause. Correct? Yeah, thought
Yeah.
so. That's what I would do. I assume they did this. Listen, some things happen during the middle of the day, Taryn, and some people got to bill hours. I wasn't quite sure. Okay. So
No,
Taryn,
you got it nailed. There, Brian Kelly is looking for.
wait. Let me ask this question, and I actually genuinely don't know this. There was a game this past Saturday. He was fired before this, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So he didn't coach in the game.
No.
Okay. That's what I would be saying. I'm on the sidelines every game, every Saturday. I'm allowed access. Does my key card work? So I have this issue right now, and I won't say the name, but Mike, I'm going to role play with you. Okay, okay, fine. Mike, who are you in this LSU saga?
He's LSU.
Okay, listen to me. Okay, I was told privately and publicly that I wasn't being around. The boosters were coming for my neck. Everyone on social media said I was fired. 7 days went by and no one corrected any media reports that I wasn't fired. I wasn't allowed access. My key card doesn't work. So I don't know what else to think other than that I was fired. So the fact that nobody corrected the record for 7 days, I was allowed to. Did you think I just went AWOL and I just didn't show up? That's why. So you tricked me into not coming, and now you're firing me for cause that I didn't show up to the game on Saturday, that I didn't make the team playing? That doesn't make any sense. I am owed my money, and clearly I wasn't fired for cause because you're just manufacturing it after the fact. And my friend, Tom Mars, friend of the show, has said that never in the history of college sports has a school ever tried to won on a termination for cause. I don't really think that's true, but Tom said it, so I'm inclined to believe it's true. And I'm Brian Kelly, so yeah, what Tom said. But yeah, take that, Mike. Pay me my money. You know what? I've cut your Mike. I've muted you from here. I control everything. I'm inevitable. I'm Brian Kelly. My family.
LSU denies any wrongdoing. I don't. What do you, as LSU, say to this now, especially with the files available?
Yeah.
On the internet, like Taryn, genuinely, I'm apologize for my ignorance, but I don't.
I think what you're arguing, Mike, which it's great that you are playing LSU, given that their mascot is Mike the Tiger. But I think that what you are arguing here is that Scott Woodward was on the verge of being released from his duties as athletic director. He didn't have the ability to fire you. The only problem is that part of that meeting where you effectively fired Brian Kelly, Verge Osbury, who is now the athletic director full-time, they dropped the interim tag, he was in that meeting. So presumably he knew that decision was being made. He was in agreement with it. He was part of the decision being made. And so you can't necessarily have it both ways. Like, oh, Scott Woodward really screwed up. We should be able to fire for cause. And also the new AD was there.
Can I add one piece too? And Taryn, you'll know who this was. I believe there was an LSU politician, maybe that said and Bryce, you look like you're nodding here. That said don't worry, Woodward is not choosing the next coach of LSU. Right?
Who was
Yeah,
it?
that was the governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have the governor coming out and saying, hey, this guy's not choosing the next person. But what didn't happen until today or yesterday, right? Hey, Scott Woodward does not have the authority to fire the coach. No one said that part. And I would view that as, Taryn, I see you. I would view that as an acquiescence. Nobody corrected the record. And there are ways under a contract, and I haven't had a chance to view this contract, but if you terminate someone for cause, you have to actually send them notice. And sometimes, right, and I don't know if this is the case here, sometimes you have to give them the ability to cure, right? Yes. You have to say, was that here? We had a cure period?
No, you have to follow the process. They didn't follow the process.
Sometimes you say if it's something that can be. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
It was a 7-day cure period with
okay.
Also written statement of facts, and they had to review opportunity. There were a lot of steps that they just.
Do you know what? Did you know it's also that we should just state the obvious? LSU had just lost like 3 games in a row. Like that was the cause.
They got
like
killed on national TV at home by A&M. There were a bunch of
Right.
signs that said "Fire Brian Kelly." Like,
Right. Was James Franklin fired for cause because he lost 3 games in a row? Like, no, that's just not how cause works. Like, yeah, there was a cause for his firing. That's his team losing games, but that's not how cause is defined under the contract. At least I would be shocked if it was for this case for LSU. But most of the time, cause is like felony. You speak badly about the university. And Brian Kelly is like, if anything, he's absentee. He's not gonna. He's smart enough not to say anything stupid on a mic like that. So yeah, like every single sign and common sense points you towards he got fired because of performance on the field, not because of something he did in his morality clause. But yeah, not that we should beat it dead, but I view this as being a pretty straightforward case and one that we're going to have this fight over this buyout. How much, Taryn? It's 53 million. Bryce, 53 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That
guys, I think in the time that we've been talking about this, I think I've come up with a solution for all these schools that are suffering from these buyout consequences. And that solution is, let's not hire coaches to mega contracts in an era where their best players aren't even guaranteed to stay on the team after a good season because of the transfer portal and NIL money.
I think that's a good idea. Mega contract sounds like a bad guy in a video game. I'm into it.
I have a different approach, and maybe one that the Big Ten is taking here. Why don't we just invite private equity to take a 10% share of all future profits, and we'll get an upfront payment. That way we'll be able to afford all sorts of buyouts.
Sure. Taryn, with that said, I'm going to bounce. I'm going to take care of a childcare issue. Taryn, I know you want to talk about private equity. I know we have other things to hit, but we have a packed house today. And who am I? I have to just sometimes step back, abdicate my responsibility, and hand it over to the next crop of young lawyers and soon to be lawyers, Mr. Kravchenko. Okay, with that said, I'll bid you guys adieu. That's it. You guys take the ship into fruition. Goodbye. Adios.
Even quarterbacks have backups. So
Damn right.
Here I am. This is a progressive ad. I'm backup, quarterback of the show. So let's talk about this private equity issue. Big Ten not backing down, basically saying that they are ready to proceed without the input or the approval of Michigan and USC, and that Michigan and USC would essentially have a 6-month period by which they could agree to participate in this revenue sharing deal with UC Ventures, which is a private equity fund managing the funds of the University of California system. So I'll leave it up to either of you. Tell me, just remind the audience, like, what is this money coming in for? How much money is it? And what are they getting in return, UC Ventures? So for anyone that doesn't remember, this is a proposed $2.4 billion upfront cash payment. And UC Investments is going to give that money to the Big Ten for a 10% share in a new entity that the Big Ten is going to create as part of its sports properties. In return, the members of the league are going to extend their grant of rights. Now, for anybody that's followed the ACC conundrum, that means that the league members agree to pool their broadcast rights together for an additional 10 years. So this deal would now go through 2046. Now, it doesn't lock them in with CBS, NBC as part of this 7-year, $7 billion agreement that started this year for broadcasting rights. But it does mean that those rights are pooled, and so none of the conference members are going to be permitted to leave if they agree to this agreement. So, with that being said, Michigan and USC have had significant pushback on this agreement. They don't want to do it. The Board of Regents at the University of Michigan, in particular, is very strong, and they have come out publicly, Jordan Acker, amongst others, saying that this is essentially a payday loan. So what can you tell us from the perspective of Michigan and USC, what they might be willing to do, and whether you think that this is going to end up in litigation, Bryce?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Taryn, because, I think that from when you look at the utility of this pooling deal, um, the way I see it, I see a lot of benefit for some of the programs in the Big Ten that aren't necessarily considered the blue bloods, but are ultimately going to be getting a lot of broadcasting exposure, commercial benefit from this injection of cash. But I think from Michigan and USC's perspective, it's different because obviously these are programs with historic success and historic branding opportunities. And so, ultimately, when they look at it, it's a long-term commitment to bind them to the rest of the schools in the Big Ten when, in this ever-changing era of college football, if more lucrative commercial opportunities arise, maybe there's another conference realignment, then that might present an opportunity for those institutions. And so I think it seems to me like it's a case of big schools in the Big Ten versus smaller schools in the Big Ten. And these big schools, Michigan and USC, albeit USC is still new, aren't wanting to tie themselves down to this financial opportunity because there might be more lucrative opportunities coming in the future.
But it's not just that the big schools are all on one side and that the small schools are on the other, right? Right. So you've got Ohio State, Penn State. They're poised to make the largest payments as part of this agreement, and they are seemingly in favor. So, Mike, from that perspective, why do you think that Penn State and Ohio State, who have some of the largest deals outside of broadcasting, are interested in making this agreement for private capital to come in?
Yeah, I mean, they seemingly feel as of right now that it helps with everything that goes along with what brings greatness to a school, not just on the athletic field, but just the overall university as a whole. So, they think that they could basically bring some more money, better recruiting, infrastructure, NIL positioning. Same with Penn State. They had mentioned that this is kind of positions them to better compete with some facilities, some staff, and scholarships that maybe, that they have a large influx of money and do have large deals comparatively to some of the smaller Big Ten schools. But this is still a significant chunk of money coming in that they don't have to fork over themselves, really. I mean, it is in a trade, they're giving services and, still providing a percentage, but, this is a significant amount of money that's coming in that I mean, I think we've seen it already, through boosters in the past. It's like these universities need and want money from external sources. They just do. So I think how maybe just certain schools and certain athletic directors and presidents of universities are looking at it is just, hey, this is a business. This is a business transaction. We give 10%, we get a complete, hundreds of millions of dollars influxed into the school, pretty immediate too. I mean, it's a significant upfront payment. So, Ohio State is almost $200 million, $190 million.
Yeah.
And then same with Penn State. So it's like, when that type of money is being put in front of the face of university leadership, whether it's in athletics or across any university, I think it's difficult to look at that and be like, what are we giving up for such a significant amount of money? And maybe these are some schools that do feel that, this new structure is the way to go about it. I mean, I don't know how we'll see. I mean, Ohio State is in its own universe right now as a team on the field. Like, I would imagine, I mean, they have the most likely chance to definitely go back to back. And for a team like that, who you would think more similar to Michigan, where they could function on their own in a way. They're still looking to take advantage of this. And, I think that'll provide them and a team like Penn State very long-term Bryce, you had mentioned maybe people don't or universities don't want to be locked down into the Big Ten when there's realignment. And that's where I think, yes, a team like USC, who maybe is not maybe is absolutely feeling the negative effects of the travel and being in a different conference. They've already mentioned it multiple times. I don't know that they want to be kind of bogged down or quote unquote stuck for another 10 years. They made the decision to move over, and they're in till 2036, but they might not want to be in, even maybe if as possible get out early, but at a bare minimum, I just can't see USC continuing this travel schedule and the way they're going about it past 2036. So I think that's got to be a huge motivation for them, and why a school like Ohio State or Penn State would not be, because they're, like Bryce said, kind of a blue blood of Big Ten and likely to be there forever. Michigan really does surprise me. That was one that I think surprised me pretty significantly, actually. But again, it's that OSU Michigan rivalry. They're just they got to be on the fence regardless. One other thing I would love to maybe get your thoughts on, either of you, is how this is. I think of this because of the world that I'm in fundraising and development and on a university side. You're turning these into, for-profit places now. Like, it's very difficult at this point to now, like, legally and tax wise, actually set up the framework to be tax exempt. So like when players and coaches are going out and getting meals and they're using their tax exempt number to not pay tax on any of that. And, also in terms of, it's just for profit at this point. You're becoming extremely for profit. So rather than the nonprofit mission and like tax exempt status that universities have, been able to use for as long as we know, I think that those universities that are getting deals like this, even if it's just in athletics, I think it spreads across the whole university. And why I can kind of see that, why in a sense Michigan and USC, another reason they'd be against it is just now we're for profit professional leagues, completely in everyone's faces, at least.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's too different than what we have right now, but yeah, I think that that's a reasonable argument that somebody could make, that we might see some sort of lawsuit mirroring that argument. So yeah, I think we'll put a pin in it for now, continue to track this and see where it goes. But I think that we could see lawsuits related to this if the Big Ten tries to go ahead without these two major players, Michigan and USC. So, Mike, I understand that we have an interview real quick. As always, this show brought to you by Themis. Themis, best bar review company in the galaxy. We've all used Themis, and Mike will. So reach out to us if you want a promo code for that. It's never too early to start thinking about the bar, whether you're taking it in February or next July. And Mike, who do we have interviewing today?
Yeah, I'm excited to share this. As many listeners may know, our law student board continuously grows, continues to put out different content, different opportunities for students. And one of the things that has been really awesome is to see a couple of the people on our board take it and run with it and build a network and continue to do some interviews. So this interview today, I'm really excited to share. Michaela Yarwood, who is a obviously JD candidate at Gonzaga University, did an interview with Casey Hughes, who is a legal fellow at the Columbus Blue Jackets. So I'm really excited to share this as the board president, but also just conduct as a whole. Looking forward to a great conversation from Michaela and Casey.
Welcome to the first interview of Conduct Detrimental's mini-series, where we'll gain some insight from professionals working in the sports law world. I'm Michaela. Today I'm joined by Casey Hughes, a legal fellow at the Columbus Blue Jackets. Casey, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me today. Let's get started. If you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you went to school.
So I just finished my first year working for the Columbus Blue Jackets as a legal fellow. I obtained my JD from DePaul University College of Law in Chicago. I had plans on staying in Chicago, but when a sports job like this comes up, you have to take it and run with it. But I'm originally from Ohio, so it was kind of a homecoming. I have a lot of friends and family here. Um, so yeah, I love the hockey space. I plan on staying in the hockey space, but we'll see where, the sports world takes me. But yeah, I've really enjoyed my time here, and I look forward to this interview.
Awesome. Did you know you wanted to do sports law going into law school, or what kind of piqued your interest? What made you want to pursue it?
Yeah, so one of my best friends actually did a legal internship with the Browns in undergrad. And I didn't really know that there was an intersect between sports and law at that point, but I knew I wanted to go to law school. Um, so I saw what she was doing and I thought it was just super fascinating. So I knew when I went to law school, that was my goal and objective. I didn't know if it was going to be sports or entertainment, but either way, it's a very unique space and one that you get to touch on a bunch of different aspects of the law. So, from my friend Autumn, who now works for the Jaguars, I kind of felt an inspiration to start looking into that. And when I moved to Chicago, I started networking like crazy, started meeting all the people, found out this is like the most ideal job for me. Um, so yeah, that was it. And then meeting, networking, all the people really just helped me hone in on this practice area.
That's awesome. And I know you interned with the Pittsburgh Penguins as
Mhm.
well. Tell me about that. What was that like?
It was great. I actually at that time, my Penguins boss was working for the USL league office in Florida. So I had an internship with them. It only was about 2 weeks, and then he told me he was moving to the Penguins. So I went with him because I really wanted to work with him. Um, I loved it. Again, this is a very unique space because we're not as big as, the NFL, MLB, but we still have a lot of power behind us and it's a lot of fans, international fans. So it's a really great space. So I knew from the Penguins that if I could stay in NHL, I would like to. And this job opened right after I passed the bar. So it was kind of serendipitous. So yeah, I'm thankful for the Penguins position. It really showed me um, the uniqueness of the NHL and how great the league is to work with and every team's very collaborative and I really appreciate this experience.
So, rolling off of that, what was your experience? What did you do in law school that kind of set you up to be in the position where you are?
Yeah, I honestly doing what you're doing now. I networked like crazy. I tried to meet every sports attorney in Chicago and there's lots of teams and leagues and at the time a lot of league offices when I was in school. So I went on LinkedIn literally the first day of law school, started messaging people, went to networking events throughout the city, even if they weren't sports related. I just tried to meet people who were doing transactional law, um, just so I could transfer my skills in that space. I was also a president of our Entertainment and Sports Law Society. It was not a group when I first started law school because during COVID it disbanded. And me and a couple other law students, we worked together to bring it back. And I thought it was an amazing opportunity. We got to meet a bunch of different types of attorneys in Chicago, whether it was sports or entertainment, and kind of combined that. But other than that, I did a lot of writings. I wrote for the ABA, Entertainment and Sports Law Forum. Really anything that could get put on my resume that said sports, I took full advantage of. I asked for advice from people. I kept my network strong. I really anything to get me in this space. I owe a lot of that to the people that I surrounded myself with. They definitely helped me get here.
Yeah, the people are huge. I think if you have a
Yeah.
good network, good surrounding people, you're set.
Yeah.
So more on that. Do you think there's any specific characteristics or skills that you have or that successful sports lawyers have?
One of the biggest things that I found working for a team is the ability to collaborate and communicate with every department. When I first started here, obviously I had a little bit of experience with the Penguins and the NWSL, but actually being immersed in the office and having, your law license behind you, it's more motivating. And I tried to get to know everyone in every department just so when we inevitably have to collaborate on a project, it's easier to communicate. I think that was a huge step for me. And I think everyone should do that when you go into an office space, is just try to get to know your coworkers, because you'll work together and it just makes things easier. Also learning how to really pay attention to the details. We do a lot of contracts, obviously, and then when we send them to partners or whoever it is, maybe there's red lines we get back. So knowing that a paragraph can hinge on one word is just, it's kind of mind-boggling to think about. We don't really learn that in law school. So learning that has been very important and has definitely started excelling me in my career. Learning that early, and then that in conjunction with the communication, I think is just very important.
As a legal fellow, what does your day-to-day look like? What are you doing? What are you working on?
I work on so many different things. It's kind of insane. So today I had 2 sponsorship contracts that I had to draft. We got one back with a bunch of red lines from a partner. So I'm going through those and just accepting, rejecting what we can, kind of discussing with them what that process looks like, what we have to have from the NHL side. A lot of what I do too is our immigration filings. We have a lot of players from Canada, Sweden. We have a couple Russian players. So this summer was insane with how many we had to file. And I think it's very interesting. I'm kind of annoying. Like when we get projects that take a long time or take a lot of attention to detail, I love those. Maybe it's like the nerdy attorney in me, but I think that those are so fun. So a lot of immigration, but then when I get back to work, I have to look at a 150-page service agreement from one of our vendors. So it's a lot of, writing and reading, I guess, is my whole day. But then, like I said, we have a lot of projects with our ticketing department or our corporate team that we just talk through and help them fix whatever problem. So I say I have a agenda for today, but it'll end up changing in the next hour. But it makes this job very interesting.
On your toes.
Yes, definitely.
So you're kind of involved in everything. Do you want to expand a little more on your involvement in player contracts, sponsorship deals? What are those challenges? What do those look like?
Yeah, so I actually don't really handle player contracts. I think that that's a team to team thing. We have a hockey ops department who completely handles that. Obviously, if there's an issue in the contract, we'll look at that, or if there's negotiation, we can step in and help with that. But usually, that's handled by our hockey ops team. We do all of the sponsorship deals, though. So when we get a new sponsor, someone renews, we do that. We have a basic, I guess, template, a basic deal that we go through. And obviously, there's some changes per partner, but we work through those. We send it back to the partner, then we get them back, and we decide where we're going to go from there. If they ask for more, or if they ask for less. It's sometimes a long process, but we have a lot of partners that are really easy to work with. And most of the time, if we can't come to an agreement based on red lines, we'll give them a call or we'll email them ourselves instead of our corporate team emailing them, just so we can get on the same page pretty quickly. It's a lot. It's a lot of contracts.
Are there any aspects or legal issues that you've come across that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I would say the service contracts, I didn't really think that my job would be dealing with so much data, and we have a lot of things that we have to comply with, from like federal law to Ohio law, that differentiate. So working through those service contracts and knowing that we can't just, give them use of our intellectual property or whatever the case is, because NHL prohibits us or we don't allow that. That was something very interesting to learn, is how we have to intersect with NHL, and like they have baseline rules that we have to listen to, but then we have our own rules. So how we apply that into one contract is kind of, it's a big process, but I feel very rewarded every time we go through it and we send back our red lines, just because we're protecting our brand and the NHL in its entirety. So I would say that's the most unique part of my job. And we get probably one service contract a day, and then sometimes they're like coterminous with our sponsorship deals, so we have to make sure those align. It's putting all the pieces together sometimes is a little bit more unique than I think law school could have taught me.
More than a law school hypo.
Yeah, it's literally like the most insane law school hypo, except for like the torts ones that are just completely out there. But yeah,
So that sounds so fun.
it is fun.
Never-
It keeps me on my toes. Like you said, it's a fun environment always.
Are there any trends you guys are paying attention to right now with sports betting or NIL?
So we don't really have a lot of intersect with NIL because, like I said, our draft is unique in which like we get players earlier and sometimes they go to college, but they're already drafted. So a lot of our not issues, but a lot of the things that we're paying attention to are the sports betting field. We have partners that we do sports betting deals with. And it's interesting, like the Ohio law and the federal law differences. So we have to make sure that we're in compliance with both. We actually just hired another attorney to help with our compliance procedures. Not that anything was necessarily falling through the cracks, but like there's a lot, at once for two attorneys to balance. It's a lot. So our third person is just very helpful with that. But we stay in touch with the Sports Business Journal. We read a lot of journals and articles every day. Our boss thinks it's very important just to stay up to date with a lot of different things that are happening in the sports world because there's a lot. Like I said earlier, this job intersects with so many different types of law, like ADA, Title IX. It's just everything under the sun we have to think about. So we try to stay up to date with all of that.
You guys get it all. Which
Yes,
I feel like you don't really think about when you hear sports law, but
No.
it encompasses way more than you'd think.
Yeah, people think that it's a lot of we're just doing player contracts, we're negotiating that. And I think I thought that too when I first started, but not here, but like other positions, but it's really not that. Some teams maybe it is. Like I know there are other teams that handle that, but here we don't.
More on that. What are your favorite things about your job? What makes you love it?
Definitely the people. We have a really unique and good work environment where they encourage us to collaborate and talk about things with other people. But I've made like so many good friends since I've started. I feel like I have a relationship with everyone in this office where I can go up to them and ask them a question. It's just, I enjoy going to work. I think it's a fun environment to be in. And I always tell my boss, like, even on our toughest days where work just doesn't sound fun, we get to like fall back on the idea that we're working for a professional hockey team. Like, how cool is that? So I would just say that. And then obviously the workload it ebbs and flows sometimes, but I never dread working on a project. I think they're all fun and unique. And I just feel lucky that I get to be in this space.
It's so important to have a great workplace.
Yeah.
Life can't be too bad working for the Blue Jackets.
No,
I can
it's
assume.
great.
Are there any aspects that you don't love, wish you could change?
I don't dislike anything about this job. I feel like maybe I haven't been in this space enough to know what grudges I have against certain things yet. It's a very good place to work. It's very easy to work with NHL. Obviously, sometimes our needs might conflate with what we're allowed to do under the NHL, but every time we have a question for their attorneys, it's a very quick response and an elaborate response, and we end up just like maneuvering around it and finding a solution here. But yeah, I don't think there's necessarily one thing or another I could pinpoint that I don't like.
That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Do you find that you're busier in the off season or in season?
It depends. I would say this off season was insane. We had a lot of partnership renewals, a lot of different technology programs. We've updated our privacy policy. We had a lot of bigger projects that we finished this summer in the off season. And then it just changes because now we're entering season. So we're working a lot with our digital and social team, with our ticketing department on different issues or, solutions to things. And it's just, but I like that. I like that I'm not getting stuck in one type of practice all year. It might be 2 months and then it switches to something else. And we did a lot of immigration stuff this summer, but we're not going to do a lot of that, in season unless we trade for someone. So I guess it's a pretty even amount of work. Obviously, some days are crazier than others. It's really just like ebbs and flows throughout the year.
Looking back, I know you've been in the field for a little bit now. Is there anything you wish you would have done differently during school or wish you would have known going into your job?
I think I tried to do everything that would set me up. I tried to develop as many transferable skills to this type of job. I think the one thing is I met with a couple people and that maybe said, like, this isn't the space you want to get into. This is a space that you won't be able to get into until you have 5 years under your belt, or, all like the negative feedback around this type of job that I knew I wanted to do so badly. And I didn't necessarily listen to all that advice, but I guess what I would say is there is an ability to get into this space. There's a lot of people that might say that it's too hard or you have to have this experience or the money's not there, and like there's negatives, people throw at you, but I wish maybe I just like didn't network with those people as much and instead like networked with the people that believed in me a little bit more, because clearly it worked out and it works out for lots of people every day. So just maybe ignoring that and knowing that like it can get done, I guess.
Last question for you. Do you have any advice for past you, law students wanting to enter the field? What are your thoughts?
There's a way to get into this space. Meeting the right people, making those genuine connections pays dividends. When I got this job offer, I didn't know if I wanted to move back to Ohio just yet. And I had 5 mentors telling me, they're like, you need to do it. You need to do it. So getting people in your corner that have your best interests in mind. It's one thing to network and meet people, but then it's another thing to continue those relationships and make them genuine and following up. I had Bill Ordauer with NWSL. He taught me years ago, like the best trick in networking is not meeting them for coffee one time and then that being it, but every quarter or, every other week, whatever the timeline is, reaching out to them and just being like, hey, I did this in school, or I wrote this new article, like, check it out. I saw that you're doing this. Congratulations. And just following up and maintaining that. You don't have to be face to face with someone to build that relationship. Otherwise, just, joining the clubs, writing the articles, putting sport on your resume as many times as you can, will just really set you up. And just apply to things. If it says you need this amount of experience, sometimes that doesn't matter. Sometimes they overlook that. So there is a way to get into this space, and it doesn't have to be in 5-10 years. It can be now. There's positions open. Just apply and keep meeting people and you'll get here too.
Well, thank you so much, Casey. I really appreciate you taking the time, giving some insight to future sports lawyers. And thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Mike. That was awesome. Thank you to Michaela and Casey. That was an amazing interview. And we're always trying to grow and expand the offerings that the Conduct family has. And so please do reach out to Mike and get involved in whichever way that you can. We're really open to that and want to see this platform continue to grow. So for myself, for Dan Lust, Mike Kay, and Bryce Goodwin, thanks so much for joining us for another episode. And we'll see you next time on another episode of Conduct Detrimental.